Sir, are you okay? Maya cried out, her voice cracking in the biting cold of a Detroit morning. She darted out from behind a dumpster, her hands still greasy from digging through cans, but her wide eyes locked on the man lying motionless on the sidewalk. It had all happened so fast. Two masked men had just fled the scene, leaving behind an older white man in a crumpled, expensive suit, blood streaking down his face. No one around reacted in time. A few passers-by glanced, paused, and kept walking like they'd just watched a violent movie clip irrelevant to their lives. But Maya wasn't like them. She was only 13. Raised by a foster mother in a cramped apartment in Brightmoor, one of Detroit's poorest neighborhoods, where the sounds of sirens and gunshots were as common as the morning alarm. But hardship hadn't hardened her heart. If anything, it had made it softer, tender, like an old wool scarf, sharp like a broken mirror. She dropped to her knees beside the man, gently shaking his shoulder. "Sir, can you hear me? I called for help. Please hang on." There was no response, just the rattling sound of breath, struggling through blood. Maya pulled off her scarf and pressed it against the gash on his forehead. A nurse walking by gasped and rushed over. "Oh my God, what happened? Who did this?" "Two guys. They just attacked him." Maya pointed toward the alley where the attackers had fled. "I saw him fall and ran to help." The nurse fumbled for her phone and called 911, eyeing Mia with suspicion. That look, Mia knew it too well. Black kid, dirty clothes, greasy hands. Must be involved. Nobody asked Mia for her name. Nobody asked if she was okay. When the ambulance arrived, they loaded the man onto a stretcher while Maya was pulled aside by a towering police officer who didn't bother to bend down. "What did you do to him?" he asked bluntly. "I saved him," Maya whispered. "Anyone else see that?" "No, just me." "But he was hurt, I swear." The officer sighed and pulled out his notepad. "Name, Maya. Maya Jefferson. Age, 13. The nurse leaned in. I think she might know him." "Know him?" The officer narrowed his eyes. "Who is he?" They didn't know, but Maya was starting to. As they hoisted the man into the ambulance, his collar shifted, revealing a necklace. Maya froze. A thin silver chain with a round pendant engraved RL June 1989. Exactly like the one her mother used to wear. Her heart thundered. Something twisted inside her chest. A memory blurred by time, her mother on a rainy afternoon clutching Maya close and whispering, "No matter what happens, you keep this necklace. It's proof. Proof your father once loved me." If this moment moved you as deeply as it did us, take a second to reflect on Maya's courage. In a world that often turns a blind eye, her small act of compassion could change everything. If you believe in standing up for others, in searching for truth even when it's hard, then like this video, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and tap the heart if Mia's bravery inspired you. Don't forget to subscribe to the BUP Stories channel for more powerful stories that remind us of the strength found in the most unexpected places. Maya still had that necklace attached beneath her worn hoodie. She stepped back, eyes glued to the man, a strange feeling crawling over her. Not fear, something else. A pull like destiny had just knocked. Like today wasn't just another day she planned to spend collecting cans for spare change, but the day everything might change. As the ambulance wailed away, Maya tried to follow, but the officer held her back. "You need to go home. This is for adults to handle. He might be my dad." That made him pause just for a second. Then his brows drew together. "Don't make things up." Maya didn't respond. She just shoved her hands into her pockets and gripped her mother's necklace. It was still there, cold as ever, heavy as doubt. On the walk home, she said nothing. Snowflakes started falling, landing gently on her sleeves like quiet messengers from the past. She thought of her mother, the woman who raised her with pride, despite having nothing but calloused hands and tired eyes. Her mother never said much about Ma's father, only that he promised to return. He never did. Turning a corner, Mia passed a small church. Inside, Christmas lights twinkled faintly on a crooked tree. An old black man stood outside, handing out bread. "There you are, Maya," he smiled. "Out working early again?" "Yes, Mr. Brown. I saw something today." The old man gave her a knowing look. "Sometimes, child, the Lord sends people not so we can save them, but so they can help us find ourselves." Maya lowered her gaze. She clutched the warm loaf of bread, eyes drifting back toward the direction the ambulance had gone. She didn't know the man's name. Didn't know where he lived, what he did, if he had a family. But Maya knew one thing: she had to find him. Because if she was right, that man wasn't just a victim. He might be her father. And if that were true, then the necklace wasn't just a keepsake. It was proof. Proof of a truth long buried. And now Maya would be the one to dig it up. The next morning, Maya stood outside the hospital, bundled in her oversized hoodie, holding her breath every time the automatic doors whooshed open. Nurses, visitors, delivery men came and went. She waited quiet, invisible, just another kid. Nobody noticed. Inside those walls was the man she had saved. And maybe, just maybe, her father. She hadn't told Mama D, her foster mother, the full story, only that she had helped someone in trouble and needed to check if he was okay. Mama D, half distracted and fully exhausted from a night shift, had handed her $5 and told her to be home before sunset. That was all Ma needed. She took a deep breath and walked through the entrance. "Excuse me," she asked the woman at the front desk, her voice small but steady. "I'm looking for the man brought in yesterday afternoon. The one who got attacked downtown." The woman gave her a once-over. "Name?" I don't know his name, but I was the one who called for help. I was there." "Sorry, sweetheart. No ID, no access. You'll need a parent or guardian." Maya tried again, leaning in. "He was wearing a silver necklace with R&L on it. I think he might be my dad." That got a raised eyebrow, but no sympathy. "This is a hospital, not a soap opera. I can't give you any information. Move along now." Maya turned away, heart pounding. Her eyes scanned the lobby, security guards near the elevators, cameras in the corners, but she noticed something else. A side corridor labeled staff only. She watched as a nurse badged herself in, the door slowly closing behind her. She hesitated, then followed. Sneaking wasn't hard when nobody looked your way. She ducked into the hallway just before the door shut. Her feet padded silently down the linoleum floor, weaving between carts and gurneys. A janitor looked up, but didn't say a word. Just another poor kid, maybe lost, maybe visiting someone. No one ever suspected her of anything more. On the third floor, she found the wing marked VIP, gilded letters. A polished guard at the entrance. Maya's stomach dropped. This was where he had to be. She sat on a bench across the hall, pretending to scroll through an imaginary phone. Minutes ticked by. Nurses walked in and out. A woman in a designer coat stormed past, heels clicking like gunfire. Maya caught a glimpse of the room number, 318. She rose slowly, approached the door. Once the hallway emptied, she pressed her ear to the door. Voices, a man older, tired. "You said she just appeared?" A younger woman replied sharply. "Yes, some street kid claimed she knew you." "She saved my life," the man said. His voice was calm, even familiar. She could be lying. People fake family ties all the time. "It's Detroit, Dad. Wake up." There was a silence, then the rustle of sheets. "Did she say her name?" "Maya. Maya Jefferson." Another silence, longer this time, then a whisper. "Jefferson." Maya's breath caught. Her legs wobbled. Suddenly, the door creaked open. A nurse stepped out and gasped when she saw her. "Hey, what are you doing here?" "Two just wanted to see him." "You can't be here." The nurse snapped. "Security." Before Maya could run, a guard appeared, firm hand on her shoulder. "Let me go," she shouted. Please, I just want to know the truth. About what? The guard barked. He's my dad. I think he's my dad. That made the hallway go still. The guard's grip loosened just slightly. The nurse stared. The woman in heels reappeared, her face twisted in disbelief. You, she said coldly. Number? That's impossible. Maya looked straight at her. My mom was Rachel Jefferson. She died 8 years ago. She had a necklace just like his. The woman paled for a brief second. The tough exterior cracked. Then she barked at the guard. Take her out. Maya didn't fight. As they led her to the exit, she clutched her own necklace beneath her hoodie. Her fingers trembled, not from fear, but fury. Out on the curb, the cold wind slapped her cheeks. She sat down on the bench and stared at the hospital's sliding doors, willing them to open and for someone to come after her. No one did. That night, Maya returned to Mad's apartment without a word. She lay on the thin mattress, eyes wide open, the ceiling cracked, the radiator hissed, but her mind was miles away in room 318 with a man who may or may not have recognized her name. The next morning, a knock on the door startled them both. Mama D opened it to reveal a man in a gray suit. Maya Jefferson, he asked. Mia stepped forward, guarded. The man extended a card. My name is Mr. Callahan. I represent Mr. Richard Langston. The name hit her like a punch. Richard Langston, billionaire, owner of Langston Capital, one of the richest men in Michigan. Her father. He'd like to speak with you, Callahan said softly. Maya looked at Mama D, whose jaw had gone slack. You'll be safe, he added. But it's your choice. She stared at the card. Her heart said yes. Her fears screamed, no. But her hand moved first. I'll go. Maya sat in the back seat of a sleek black car. The leather too smooth, too silent. Mr. Callahan sat in the front, tapping on a tablet, his mouth tight and unreadable. Outside, the streets of Detroit blurred past, cold, gray, familiar. But this wasn't the Detroit she knew. This was the other side. The one with quiet engines, tinted windows, and men in suits who never raised their voices. They arrived at a gated estate on the edge of the city. Beyond the iron gates, the world shifted. Manicured lawns, a winding driveway lined with bare maple trees, a house, a mansion that rose like something out of a dream Maya had never dared to have. Inside, everything gleamed. Marble floors, art on the walls that looked too serious to be beautiful. A butler, an actual butler, opened the door and nodded at Maya like he was expecting someone older. This way, Mr. Callahan said, leading her through a corridor filled with silence. At the end of the hall, a door stood ajar. Maya hesitated on the threshold. He's inside, Callahan said gently. He asked to speak with you alone. She nodded, her legs heavy. The room was large but warm, a fireplace crackled in the corner. Shelves of books lined the walls, and by the window, seated in a high-backed chair, was the man, Richard Langston. He turned slowly, bandages still wrapped part of his forehead, but his eyes still gray, sharp and distant, focused on her with unsettling intensity. Maya stood there, fists clenched at her sides. I remember your mother, he said quietly. The words fell like stones in a still pond. Rachel, he added, his voice brittle. She was luminous. Maya's breath caught. You knew her. I loved her, he replied. Once, a long time ago, she stepped closer, her voice trembling. Then why'd you leave her? Richard looked away. I didn't know she was pregnant. She left before I could explain. It was complicated. My family, my career, everything. Everything but her. Maya snapped, fire rising in her chest. You had everything and she had nothing. He flinched but didn't argue. You're right. I failed her. They sat in silence. The only sound was the ticking of a grandfather clock behind them. She died, Maya said. 8 years ago, cancer. Richard's face tightened. I'm sorry. She told me to keep the necklace. Maya added said it was proof. He nodded slowly. I had one made for her. I kept mine. I never stopped wearing it. Maya pulled hers out from under her hoodie. The two pendants now mirrored across the room like ghosts from the past. He stared at it, something in his eyes cracking open. You look like her. Your eyes? The way you hold your chin. She didn't smile. I want to know, she said, why no one believed me yesterday. Your daughter, whoever she is, she said I was lying. Richard looked tired. That was Evelyn. She's my adopted daughter. She runs most of the company now. Protective, suspicious, and not very kind. She said I wasn't real. He leaned forward. She was wrong. Maya lowered her gaze. You believe I'm your daughter? I don't need a test, he said. I see it. But for her sake, we'll do one just to close the mouths that matter. Maya said nothing. Part of her wanted to scream. Another part just wanted to go home to the cracked ceiling and the familiar rattle of Mama D's heater. I didn't bring you here for a fairy tale. Richard said, you don't owe me anything. But I owe you the truth. She looked up suspicious. Why now? Because I nearly died, he said, and the girl who saved me might be the only good thing I've done right in a long time. That silenced her. He reached beside the chair and picked up a worn photo. He held it out. Maya took it with shaking hands. It was her mother, younger, laughing, leaning against a cherry-red car. Richard stood beside her, smiling. They looked happy. They looked real. She never told me why she left. He said. I spent years searching, but I stopped. I gave up. Maya folded the photo carefully. She didn't give up on me. I can see that. He leaned back in the chair. You can stay here tonight if you like. We'll have the test done tomorrow. You'll be safe here. She shook her head. I'm not staying in a stranger's house. He smiled sadly. Fair enough. But know this, Maya. You're not a stranger to me anymore. She turned to leave. Wait, he said. Take this. He handed her a small key. It opens the music box in the study. Rachel left it with me. I never opened it. Maybe it's time. Maya took the key. Outside, the sky had turned dark. Mr. Callahan drove her back in silence, but Maya held the key tight in her palm, her heart louder than the engine. In that moment, she knew everything had changed, but nothing was settled. Not yet. That night, Maya lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The photo of her mother and Richard clenched in one hand, the small brass key in the other. Mama D had tried to ask questions when she got home, but Maya just said, I met someone I needed to meet. And went straight to her room. She hadn't told her about the mansion, the bookshelves, the fireplace, or the cold ache that had taken root in her chest after seeing Richard Langston's eyes. Those eyes haunted her, not just because they looked like hers, but because they looked tired in a way that couldn't be fixed with rest. The key pressed into her palm like it was alive. She turned it over and over, wondering what could possibly be inside that music box. A memory, a confession, or nothing but an empty echo. The next morning, before the sun had risen fully, Mr. Callahan returned. This time, Maya didn't hesitate. She got into the car without a word, clutching the key tightly. She didn't know what she was walking into, but she knew one thing. If that box held even one truth her mother had never spoken, she had to hear it. At the mansion, the halls felt colder. Fewer people moved about. Maya sensed tension in the air, like a storm was gathering behind the walls. Mr. Callahan led her to the study without speaking and left her at the door. She stepped inside alone. The study was just as she remembered: bookshelves that reached the ceiling, leather chairs that looked like no child had ever sat in them, a fireplace quietly crackling. The music box sat on a shelf near the window, dusty and plain, wooden with carvings of roses along the sides. Maya recognized it. It had sat on her mother's dresser for years. She remembered brushing her fingers over the carvings, listening to her mother hum the tune it played, though she had never once seen the lid opened. She knelt and inserted the key into the tiny hole beneath the latch. Her hands trembled as she turned it. The lock clicked. The lid creaked open. Inside was a delicate ballerina frozen mid-pirouette. As Maya lifted the lid higher, the mechanism sprang to life. A soft, haunting melody filled the room, slow and sorrowful. Not the cheerful kind she expected. Her chest tightened. Under the ballerina was a folded piece of paper. She picked it up with reverence. The edges brittle with age. Written in her mother's handwriting, the letter read, "My dearest Maya, if you are reading this, it means I am no longer by your side. But I hope you are strong and that your heart remains kind. There are things I never told you, things I was afraid would break you before they could make you. Your father loves me deeply, but we were from different worlds, and the world doesn't always love as we do. When I found out I was carrying you, I tried to tell him, but I was turned away at the gate. I kept the necklace to remember the truth that once I mattered. And so will you. I left this music box with him, hoping one day you'd find it. Don't chase vengeance, Maya. Chase truth. It will hurt, but it will also heal. Love always, Mom." Tears slid down Maya's face before she realized she was crying. She held the letter to her chest, letting the music wash over her like a whisper from another world. Behind her, the door creaked open. She turned, wiping her face. Richard stood there, leaning on a cane now. "I thought you should be alone for that," he said softly. "She tried to tell you," Maya whispered. "You didn't let her." He nodded, shame tightening his face. "I know. I thought if I closed the door, it would close the possibility, too." Maya stood. She never stopped hoping, not even when she died. "I was a coward," he said. "My world, it didn't want her, and I chose that world over her. I've regretted it every day since." There was a long silence. Finally, Maya spoke. "So, now what?" "We'll take the test," he said. "For the world's sake, not mine. And I'll face Evelyn. She's already furious." Why?" "She thinks I'm giving you something that belongs to her." Maya stared. "Are you?" He didn't answer right away then. "I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to give back something I stole." She folded the letter carefully and slipped it into her pocket. "I don't want your money." "I know," he said. "That's why I want to give it to you." She almost smiled. Almost. Later that day at the clinic, they took swabs and samples. The nurse was kind, the technician quiet. Maya sat still, her gaze distant. Richard never left her side. The test would take a few days. That night, as Maya stood by the window in her tiny bedroom at Mamada's, she held the music box in her arms like a secret. The letter was tucked safely in her pillowcase. She didn't know what the results would say. But for the first time, she wasn't afraid. Truth, her mother had written. Not vengeance, not anger, just truth. It would hurt, but it would also heal. And Maya, wrapped in a patchy blanket and the melody of a music box from another life, closed her eyes and waited. 3 days later, Maya returned to the estate, this time with a steadier gait. The music box nestled in her backpack. Her hands still fidgeted in her hoodie, but there was a different fire behind her eyes, quiet, determined, no longer just hoping for truth, but ready to demand it. Mr. Callahan met her at the gates, his expression more strained than before. "She's here," he said simply. "Evelyn?" Maya asked. He nodded. "She knows the results?" He paused. "Yes, but more importantly, she's not happy." Maya wasn't surprised. She had seen Evelyn's face the day in the hospital hallway, tight, sculpted, distant, the kind of woman who spent her life building walls out of money and reputation. But what Evelyn hadn't known then, and what Maya knew now, was that she had her mother's blood in her veins. And Rachel Jefferson had never been one to back down from the truth. Inside, the tension in the house was thick, like the air itself had taken sides. Richard sat in the sunroom, a thin blanket over his lap. His eyes lit up when Maya entered, but she could see the exhaustion. His body was failing him. That was clear now. Perhaps it always had been. Time was no longer a future. It was a countdown. "You came," he said as though surprised. "I always come back when I say I will," she answered. He gave a faint smile. "I wish more people in my life did that." Before she could reply, the door opened and Evelyn swept in. She was tall, elegant in a tailored navy coat with sharp cheekbones and colder eyes. Her heels clicked across the tile like a warning. "This has gone far enough," she said without preamble. Richard didn't respond. Maya turned to face her directly. "The test results came in this morning," Evelyn continued, tossing an envelope onto the table between them. "It's official. Congratulations. You've inherited DNA. That doesn't make you family." Maya didn't flinch. "It makes me his daughter." Evelyn scoffed. "You don't know what he's done for this family, for this company. You think you can just walk in here with your thrift store hoodie and a sob story and rewrite history?" "I'm not here to rewrite anything," Maya said calmly. "I'm here to uncover it." Evelyn turned to Richard, fury sparking. "Tell me you're not going to hand her everything. Tell me you're not giving her the company, the foundation." "I'm not handing her anything," Richard said quietly. "But I am giving her something, a name, a truth, and a chance." Evelyn laughed, bitter and sharp. "A chance? What about the years I gave you? The sacrifices?" "You were adopted, Evelyn," he said softly. "You know that didn't make you less. Why does her blood threaten you so much?" "Because she's not one of us." Silence followed, long and heavy. Maya's voice broke it. "You're right. I'm not. I grew up watching rats crawl across kitchen floors. I washed dishes for neighbors to earn laundry money. I wore shoes with holes in the winter. But I also grew up knowing what loyalty is, what sacrifice looks like, and what it means to love someone even when they can't love you back." Richard exhaled, a sound that was part pain, part pride. Evelyn turned on her heel. "This is a mistake." "No," Richard said. "You're just upset. The story doesn't end the way you wrote it." She froze, jaw tight, then stormed out. Mia sat down across from Richard. Her hands were still shaking. "Was that too much?" she asked. He reached over and took her hand. "That was truth, and truth is never too much." They sat in silence for a while, the late morning sun filtering through the glass, casting golden shadows on the rug. Later, Richard pulled out a small box. "Your mother left this, too. She told me to keep it until I was ready." Maya opened the box slowly. Inside was a photo of Rachel holding a newborn herself. Tucked behind it, a note in the same familiar handwriting. "If she finds you, don't push her away. She's braver than I ever was. Love her like I never stopped loving you." Maya pressed the note to her chest. "I wish she could see this," she whispered. "She does," Richard said. "In you," he leaned back, suddenly tired. "Are you okay?" Maya asked. "Just a little weaker today. Do you want me to leave?" He looked at her, his eyes gentler than she had ever seen. "I want you to stay." So she stayed. They spent the afternoon in the garden wrapped in blankets, sipping tea. He told her stories about the past, about college protests, about jazz clubs in the 70s, about a woman named Rachel who made him laugh like no one else ever could. And for the first time, Maya saw him not as a billionaire, not as a stranger, but as a man, flawed, failing, and deeply human. That night, as she left the estate, Evelyn passed her in the hallway. Their eyes met. Neither spoke, but Maya didn't look away, and Evelyn, for the first time, blinked first. The following morning, a light snow dusted the Langston estate like powdered sugar on glass. Maya stood at the window of the guest room, her room now, at least temporarily, watching the groundskeepers shovel neat paths through the walkways. It felt strange, this kind of order. Where she came from, snow meant another day of cold toes and broken bus schedules, not picturesque views and quiet. Downstairs, the mansion was unusually still. Maya wandered into the breakfast room to find Richard already at the table, a blanket over his lap, a mug of tea in his hand. He looked older than yesterday, as if each day now carried the weight of 10. "Sleep okay?" he asked, offering a soft smile. She nodded, pouring herself a cup of coffee, black and bitter the way Mama D liked it. "Yeah, better than usual." "That's something." There was a pause before she asked, "Have you talked to Evelyn?" He shook his head. "She's gone to Chicago, some board meeting, probably to make sure no one thinks I've lost my mind." Maya looked at him. "Have you?" He chuckled, hoarse and tired. "Only the parts one needed to lose." She sat across from him, steam rising between them. "You know," he said after a while, "there was a time I thought I'd never have a legacy." "You have a company, buildings named after you, foundations." He looked past her out the window. "That's not legacy, Maya. That's real estate. Legacy is when someone speaks your name in a room you're not in, does it with love." Maya swallowed. "My mom spoke your name." "She didn't do it often, but when she did, it was soft." He closed his eyes briefly. "She was the best thing I never deserved." The doorbell rang, echoing through the house like a warning. A moment later, Callahan appeared at the dining room entrance, his face drawn. "There's someone here to see you both," he said. Richard frowned. "Who?" Callahan hesitated. "Media." Maya's heart dropped. "They found out." "Seems so. One of the nurses must have leaked the test results." Mia stood. "What do they want?" "The usual. A story, a scandal, a headline." Richard exhaled and looked to her. "You don't have to say anything, Mia. You owe them nothing." But Mia's jaw set. "Number. I'm not hiding anymore." They moved to the front foyer where 2 reporters and a camera crew were already standing just outside the threshold. Microphones at the ready. "Mr. Langston, is it true this girl is your biological daughter?" One of them called out as soon as the doors opened. Richard stood with his cane, tall despite the fatigue. "Yes," he said simply. Another question came, "How long have you known? What happens to your estate?" And then they turned to Maya. "What's your name, sweetheart? How does it feel to go from poverty to the Langston name?" Mia looked straight into the lens. Her voice was clear, even. "My name is Maya Jefferson. My mother's name was Rachel. She raised me with nothing but truth and strength. I'm not here for money. I'm here because the truth deserves a seat at the table." One of the reporters pushed forward. "Are you saying you don't want any inheritance?" Maya smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I inherited something already, my mother's courage." Richard placed a hand on her shoulder. "That's all anyone should hope to pass on." The press didn't know what to do with that. There were no tears, no breakdowns, no dramatic declarations. Just 2 people, one old, one young, bound by blood and silence, standing in the cold. As the reporters retreated, Callahan whispered, "Well done." Later that afternoon, Maya visited the old neighborhood for the first time in weeks. Mama D opened the door, hands on hips, lips tight, but her eyes were relieved. "I heard you've been on television," she said, not unkindly. "You okay?" Maya nodded. "I think so." They sat in the living room, steam rising from mugs of instant cocoa. "I didn't tell you everything," Mia said finally. "About Richard, about what he means." Mama D took a long sip. "I figured you've had that necklace your whole life. Thought maybe one day the story behind it would catch up." Maya studied her. "You never asked. Didn't need to. You're not the kind of child that runs from truth. You run toward it." Maya leaned back, letting the warmth seep into her bones. When she left later that evening, Mama D pressed a small envelope into her hand. Your mama gave me this before she passed, she said. Told me not to give it to you until the day you stopped asking questions and started answering them. Maya opened it on the ride back to the estate. Inside was a single line written in her mother's looping cursive: "Forgive him when you're ready, but never forget what made you strong." Mia closed her eyes. The echoes of her mother's name lingered in the corners of her heart. And now she carried them forward. 3 days later, Maya stood in front of a set of double mahogany doors that looked more like the entrance to a cathedral than a meeting room. Above them, a brass plaque read Langston Capital Executive Boardroom. Behind those doors sat a group of people who had built empires on wealth, reputation, and legacy. And today they were going to decide whether or not she belonged in that world. Richard stood beside her, leaning slightly on his cane. He was pale but composed, dressed in a charcoal gray suit that fit him like armor. "You don't have to say anything," he murmured. "This is just formality." Maya adjusted the collar of her coat, her mother's words echoing in her head. "Don't chase vengeance, Maya. Chase truth." "I want to speak," she said. He nodded, proud and a little worried. "Then speak with strength." The doors opened. The room was colder than she expected, all glass and chrome. Around a long black table sat 12 people, men and women in designer suits, eyes sharp as blades. Evelyn was among them, seated at the far end, her posture rigid, her expression unreadable. Maya Jefferson announced a gray-haired man at the head of the table. "Thank you for joining us. I'm Alan Prescott, senior partner. Mr. Langston has requested a hearing concerning recent disclosures about family and succession. We're here to clarify the implications." "Let's be honest," Evelyn cut in, her voice cool. "We're here because he dropped a scandal into our laps and expects us to treat it like a legacy." Richard raised a hand. "She's not a scandal. She's my daughter." "Oh." Prescott cleared his throat. "No one disputes the paternity test. But the issue, Mr. Langston, is what you intend to do with this knowledge. Are you amending your estate plans, your trusts, your company shares?" Richard nodded. "Yes, I'm establishing a personal foundation, the Maya Fund for Community Outreach, Scholarships, and Urban Reinvestment. It will receive 30% of my estate upon my passing." Gasps rippled through the room. Evelyn's nails tapped the table like war drums. "That's hundreds of millions of dollars." She snapped. "You're giving it to a girl who showed up a week ago with a story and a necklace." Maya stepped forward. Her voice was quiet, but every word landed with weight. "I didn't ask for money. I didn't even ask for his name. I saved a man on the street because he was hurt, not because he was wealthy. I didn't know who he was." "And yet here you are," Evelyn said. "Yes," Maya replied. "Because he told me the truth and because my mother asked me to find it. Not for revenge, for peace." A pause followed. Then Maya reached into her coat and pulled out the letter from her mother, the one Mama D had given her. "My mother knew what she was doing when she left. She knew this world wouldn't welcome us. She told me to forgive him when I was ready. Not because he earned it, but because it would free me." She unfolded the paper, placed it gently on the table in front of Evelyn. "Take it," she said. "Read it. Then tell me if she didn't matter." Evelyn stared at the letter, her jaw tight. "She raised me alone," Maya continued. "With dignity, even in poverty. If this fund honors that strength, then I'll accept it. Not for me. For the kids still out there walking in my old shoes." Alan Prescott glanced at the rest of the board. Then back at Richard. "Mr. Langston, do you wish to proceed with the establishment of the Maya Fund?" "Yes," Richard said without hesitation. Prescott nodded. "Then it is noted. And the board will respect your wishes." Evelyn stood. "This isn't over." "No," Maya said softly. "It's just beginning." After the meeting, Richard walked her out to the terrace, his breath shallow in the cold air. "You did well," he said. She looked at him. "How much time do you think you have?" He didn't answer. just reached into his coat and pulled out a small box. Inside was an old gold fountain pen. This was my father's. He used it to sign every deal, every partnership, every letter. He gave it to me when I started this company. Maya looked at the pen. Why give it to me? Because legacy isn't just blood. It's what you build. And I want you to build something better than I ever did. She closed the box and held it tight. Later that evening, Maya visited the empty lot where the grocery store used to be in her neighborhood, burned down during riots 5 years ago, never rebuilt. She stood there with Mr. Callahan, who now treated her like someone who mattered. This is where the Maya Fund will start. She said, a community center, free tutoring, meals, mental health services. Callahan smiled. That's quite the vision. It's not a vision, she said. It's a promise. From the sidewalk, kids watched her with curious eyes. Some of them were her age, some younger. All of them looking for something they hadn't found yet. Maya turned toward them and waved. And one by one they waved back. Maya stood in the middle of the empty lot, surrounded by frostbitten weeds and broken glass, but her mind was already sketching walls, hallways, and laughter. She saw it clearly now, a 2-story brick center with wide windows and a painted mural of neighborhood heroes, her mother among them. It would take time. It would take work, but it would rise. That night, back at the estate, the house felt quieter than usual. Richard had been resting more, and Mia didn't see him during dinner. Callahan said he'd asked not to be disturbed. Maya respected that, but something inside her an ache. A worry kept her from sleeping. She padded down the hallway in socks, the floor creaking beneath her. She stopped outside Richard's study. Light glowed faintly from under the door. She knocked once. Come in, came his voice, faint but steady. She pushed the door open. Richard sat in the leather chair by the fire, the same one he'd used since they first met. He looked older tonight, smaller somehow, but his eyes were warm. I thought you'd be asleep by now, he said. I couldn't, she replied, walking in and curling into the chair across from him. Too much in my head, he nodded. That never changes. She noticed a stack of photos on the table beside him, old pictures, faded, curled at the edges. He handed one to her. It was a black and white shot of a much younger Richard, arm around a grinning man with a familiar face. Who's this? Maya asked. Earl Langston, my brother. I didn't know you had a brother. We were close once, Richard said. But after my father died, the family business split us apart. He wanted to expand into housing. I wanted to invest in education. Our board chose my path. Maya studied the photo. Earl looked nothing like the cold man on the board. His eyes were bright, mischievous. Is he still alive? I haven't seen him in 20 years, Richard murmured. He said, I betrayed him. Took everything. Maya leaned back. Why are you showing me this now? Because history repeats itself, Maya. Evelyn is fighting me just like Earl did. And like me, she believes she's doing it for the right reasons. There was a silence between them, the fire snapping softly. What if she tries to take everything back? Maya asked. The foundation, the promise. She'll try, he said simply. And she may even succeed. Maya frowned. Then why give it to me at all? Because this legacy isn't about keeping power, he said. It's about giving it away. That's what Evelyn never understood. And maybe Earl didn't either. The next day, Maya and Callahan drove to a downtown law office to meet with the foundation's initial advisors. But as they stepped out of the car, a man in a long coat blocked their path. Maya Jefferson, he asked. She blinked. Yes, I represent Earl Langston. The name hit like cold water. She stepped back instinctively. He wishes to meet you, the man said privately. As soon as possible, Callahan moved between them. Why? He believes you've been misled. Later that evening, Maya sat alone in the estate's library, the letter from her mother open in her lap. Every instinct told her not to trust strangers. But something about the man's tone, the way he'd said misled, unsettled her. She didn't tell Richard. Instead, the next afternoon, she met Earl Langston at a small coffee shop outside the city. He was older now, with silver hair and a limp, but his presence was undeniable. He sat with his back straight, coat draped over the chair like he was still running boardrooms. "You look like her," he said without greeting. "Rachel," Maya sat cautiously. "You knew my mother?" "I met her once briefly. Richard brought her to a gala. She didn't fit in. That's probably why he loved her." "Oh," Maya didn't respond. "I've kept my distance," he continued. "But I've watched and I don't like what I see." She raised her eyebrows. "What do you see?" "A young woman being used as a symbol. My brother's guilt is vast and now he's shaping you into his redemption. My intent, or maybe he gave you just enough truth to keep you loyal." She leaned in. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because the board's turning. Evelyn's pushing for an emergency clause in the trust. If Richard passes before the transfer completes, everything defaults to her, including the Maya fund." Maya froze. "He didn't tell you that?" Earl asked softly. "No," she whispered. He reached into his coat and slid a folder across the table. "Read this. And think carefully about who you trust." That night, Maya sat alone in the music room, the ballerina inside the box spinning slowly as the melody played. The folder lay beside her, signed documents, a pending clause, a list of assets still in transition. Richard had promised her truth, but he hadn't promised protection. And now someone was waiting for him to run out of time. Maya paced the length of the sunroom, her fingers grazing the smooth edge of the folder Earl had handed her. Each page burned with implications she didn't yet fully understand. But one thing was clear. The transition of assets, including the Maya fund, was still incomplete. And if Richard passed before the documents were signed and filed, every promise would vanish into Evelyn's control. She glanced at the grandfather clock. 8:23 p.m. Somewhere down the hall, Richard was likely sleeping. Callahan had told her he'd been in and out of rest all day, his condition wavering like a flickering flame. She thought of the look in Earl's eyes. Not anger, not greed, but urgency and maybe regret. Maya knew what she had to do. She strode toward Richard's study, knocking softly before entering. The lights were dim, and he lay on the leather recliner wrapped in a heavy knit blanket, his skin pale against the warm tones of the room. His eyes fluttered open as she approached. "Maya," he rasped. "I need to talk to you," she said, taking a seat beside him. "And I need you to be honest." He exhaled slowly. "I always am with you." She held up the folder. "Why didn't you tell me the documents weren't finalized?" His brow furrowed slightly. "I didn't want to burden you with legal timelines. It's all just bureaucracy." "No," she said gently but firmly. "It's vulnerability, and you kept it from me." He turned his head toward the fire. "I thought I had more time." Maya felt her throat tighten. "What if you don't?" Silence. The clock ticked. "I need to sign them," he said. Finally. "Tonight," she stood. "I'll get Callahan." Within minutes, Callahan arrived, legal pads in hand, his face ashen with worry. "They're ready," he said. "I'll have the notary meet us here." "We'll need a witness." "I'll do it," Mia said. As Callahan stepped into the hall to make calls, Richard reached for Mia's hand. "You remind me of her more every day," he said. "She wouldn't let anything slip through the cracks either. She wouldn't have let you make promises you couldn't keep." "No," he admitted. "She would have made me get up and march down to City Hall if I had to." Maya smiled through the heaviness in her chest. "Then let's do it her way." An hour later, the documents were laid out on the desk. The notary, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes and a crisp voice, stood ready. Richard signed slowly, each stroke of the pen deliberate, like he was carving meaning into stone. When it was done, the notary stamped each page. The Maya Fund was now legally and irrevocably established. Richard sagged back into his chair. "You did it," Mia whispered. "No," he said with a faint smile. "We did." That night, Maya sat in the music room again, watching the ballerina spin. The melody seemed slower, more somber. She felt relief, but it was laced with dread. The future was secured, but the man behind it all was fading. The next morning, Evelyn returned. Maya met her in the front parlor, standing like a wall between past and present. "I assume you've heard," Evelyn said, coat still buttoned, voice tight. "I have." "You pushed him," she accused. "While he was ill." "I saved what he wanted," Maya replied. Evelyn walked past her, eyes scanning the room like it was suddenly unfamiliar. "This house used to mean something. Before it became a place of charity and sentiment." "It still means something," Maya said. "Now it means truth." Evelyn's gaze locked with hers. "You're young. You think justice is about feelings, but this world is built on leverage." "No," Maya said calmly. "Your world is, but mine is built on something different." "And what's that?" "Legacy. The kind that doesn't need to buy loyalty." Evelyn's lips parted, but no words came. She left without another glance. Later that day, Maya and Callahan visited the city planning office, delivering the signed documents. A week from now, the first permits for the community center would be issued. Blueprints would follow. Contractors, volunteers. The dream was becoming real. But by evening, the house was quiet again. Too quiet. Maya knocked on Richard's door just after sunset. No answer. She turned the handle and stepped inside. He was sitting by the window, looking out at the last glimmer of snow. "Hey," she said softly. He didn't turn. "Richard," she repeated, stepping closer. Still no response. Then she saw the letter in his lap, unopened, addressed simply to Maya. Her chest clenched. She touched his shoulder, still warm but unmoving. The letter trembled in her hands as she opened it. "My dearest Maya, if you're reading this, it means I finally found peace. You gave me something I thought I'd never earn again. Redemption. Not through wealth, but through your courage. You are more than my daughter. You are the future. Don't mourn me. Build, lead, and never let anyone rewrite your truth. Love, Dad." Maya sank into the chair beside him, letter in hand, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. He was gone, but his legacy, her mother's strength, and the truth they fought to preserve, her all still alive, and they were hers now. The funeral was held at St. James Cathedral, the same place Richard had once been baptized, confirmed, and married. Now it was where his name would be remembered for the last time by those who had known him in life. Maya stood just inside the grand entrance, the stained glass windows casting rich blues and golds across her skin. She wore her mother's necklace tucked beneath the collar of a modest black dress, and in her pocket, Richard's final letter rested like a heartbeat. Outside, a long line of limousines formed, the elite of Detroit arriving in solemn order. Inside, pews filled with people who'd known Richard through business, politics, charity. Maya recognized some of them from the boardroom, some from newspaper headlines, and none from her world. When Evelyn arrived, she didn't make eye contact. She moved straight to the front pew with a grace that was sharp rather than soft. Maya watched her take her seat beside two attorneys and a woman in pearls who whispered like wind through stone. The service began with organ music that rose to the vaulted ceiling. The priest spoke of Richard's philanthropy, his business acumen, his contributions to the city. But it wasn't until Maya stood to speak that the hush in the room became something deeper. She walked to the pulpit slowly, every step echoing in the stillness. She had no script, only the truth. "When I met Richard Langston," she began, voice steady, "I didn't know he was my father. I didn't know he was rich or powerful or complicated. I just knew he was a man in pain and I helped him." A few murmurs rippled through the crowd. "Later, I learned who he was and who I was. And I'll be honest, part of me wanted to run because the truth isn't always beautiful. It doesn't always come with a bow. She paused, her eyes sweeping the audience. But Richard didn't want beauty. He wanted honesty. He gave me that and I gave it back. We didn't get years together. We got moments. But sometimes moments are all it takes to change a life. She took a breath. He taught me that legacy isn't the buildings you leave behind. It's the lives you touch, the stories people tell when you're not in the room. She looked toward the casket. And I hope that in my story, he is remembered not just for what he built, but for who he tried to become at the end. She stepped down in silence. The cathedral remained still, save for the soft creak of benches as people shifted. Contemplative. After the service, the crowd dispersed into the icy air. Maya lingered, hands wrapped around a paper cup of bitter church coffee. Callahan approached her, somber and kind. He'd be proud, he said. I wish I could have told him I forgave him, she murmured. You did, just not in words. A limousine door opened nearby, and Evelyn stepped out, coat tightly belted, heels clicking against the pavement as she approached. Maya turned to face her. I suppose congratulations are in order. Evelyn said, You've got his name now, his money, his foundation. I didn't come here for any of that. Evelyn tilted her head. But you stayed for it. I stayed because he asked me to finish what he started. Evelyn's lips pressed into a thin line. You think you can change this city with one community center? No, Mia said quietly. But I can start with that. She turned and walked away. 1 week later, Maya stood in the middle of the now cleared lot in her old neighborhood. A large sign stood behind her, unveiled earlier that morning. The Rachel Jefferson Community Center, a place to rise. Construction equipment lined the perimeter. Volunteers moved with energy and purpose. Reporters hovered at the edges, snapping photos. And in the center of it all, Maya spoke to the gathered crowd. This was once an abandoned space, she said into the microphone. A place where nothing grew. My mother used to walk past it and say, someday something good's going to take root here. She smiled gently. She didn't live to see it, but she planted the first seed. The crowd murmured in response. Some cheered. An older woman wiped her eyes. This center is not about charity. It's about dignity, education, health, healing. It's a promise that no child should feel forgotten. That no story should go unheard. Behind her, the first digger began to break ground. Cheers erupted as the earth turned. That night, Mia sat in her childhood bedroom at Mama Dee's house. The air smelled of fried catfish and fabric softener. On her lap was a folder containing the first grant applications for the center. She looked at the photo pinned above her desk. Rachel holding baby Maya smiling in the sun. I'm trying, Mama, she whispered. I'm really trying. On her nightstand, the music box waited. She wound it once, let it play, and in the melody, in the space between notes, she felt her mother's presence, her father's, their struggles, their redemption. The foundation had been laid. Now it was time to build. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was set for Saturday at noon. Under the bold Michigan sky, Maya had hardly slept the night before. Her mind danced between excitement and nerves, gratitude and grief. There was a weight on her shoulders, but it was a chosen weight. And for the first time in her life, it didn't feel like a burden. It felt like purpose. At 10 a.m., the first community members began to arrive. Families from the neighborhood, single mothers with strollers, teenagers with headphones, elderly men in veterans' jackets gathered in small clusters, buzzing with curiosity and cautious hope. Some brought folding chairs, others brought casseroles. Mama D showed up with a pot of gumbo and her Sunday hat tilted just so. The completed building stood behind Maya like a promise kept: clean brick walls, big glass windows, hand-painted signs that read tutoring, health and wellness, and youth lounge. The mural, a sweeping piece across the east wall, depicted Rachel Jefferson at the center, arms open wide, surrounded by swirling images of resilience: a girl reading, a boy planting flowers, an old man teaching chess, a young woman building bricks. At the bottom, in careful script, strength is something you pass on. Callahan approached with a clipboard. We're ready when you are. Maya took a deep breath and stepped up to the podium. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the mic. Thank you all for coming, she began, voice strong. When I was a kid, I walked past this lot every day and thought, maybe one day someone will build something here that helps kids like me. And then I got older and I thought, maybe that someone has to be me. A soft wave of applause rippled through the crowd. I didn't build this alone, she continued. It took vision. It took people who believed. And it took the truth about where we come from and what we deserve. She glanced at the crowd, locking eyes with the girl from across the street who used to sell lemonade for quarters. With the twin boys who'd lost their father to the opioid crisis. With the teacher who never gave up on her despite Maya missing half a semester of school during the winter her heating failed. This center is named for my mother, Rachel Jefferson. Maya said she never had much, but she gave me everything. Her love, her strength, and her honesty, and now her name will be a place of hope. She stepped down and picked up the ceremonial scissors. Callahan handed her the ribbon stretched tight between two poles draped in fabric. Mama D called out from the front row. You better make her proud, baby. Maya smiled through sudden tears. I'm trying. She cut the ribbon. The crowd erupted. Kids ran inside first, marveling at the computer lab, the art studio, the recording booth donated by a local radio station. Parents followed, wide-eyed at the clean clinic space and cozy counseling rooms. Volunteers handed out tour maps. A brass band from the local high school played upbeat jazz from the sidewalk. For the first time, Maya allowed herself to stand still, to breathe, and then she saw Evelyn dressed in slate gray. She stood apart from the crowd near the mural's edge. Her face was unreadable. Maya approached her slowly. I wasn't expecting to see you here, she said. I wasn't planning to come, Evelyn admitted. But I wanted to see it with my own eyes. See what he left behind. Maya nodded. You're welcome to come inside. I don't belong in there. Maya looked at her. You belong wherever truth exists. And this place is built on it. Evelyn studied the mural. Her voice softened. She was beautiful. She was strong. Silence fell between them like mist. I still don't agree with how he did things, Evelyn said. But I'm beginning to understand why. Maya didn't respond. She didn't need to. Later, inside the counseling room, a boy no older than 11 approached her. His hair was uncombed and his shoes were too big. You the one who built this? He asked. With a lot of help, Maya smiled. My mom said we can get homework help here. Is that true? It's true. You can also get snacks, music lessons, and a safe place to be yourself. The boy nodded. Cool. My name's Darnell. Nice to meet you, Darnell. He hesitated. You live here now? No, she said gently. But I'll be here a lot. He smiled and walked away. Maya turned to the window, watching the crowd still milling about in the yard, music in the air. She could hear her mother's voice in her memory, gentle and proud. You turned the ashes into something that blooms. That night, long after the crowd had gone, and the lights had dimmed, Maya returned to the mural one last time. She ran her fingers along the painted lines of her mother's face. Then she took out the music box. She wound it once, placed it at the base of the wall, and let the song play into the night air. And under the stars of a city, still healing, still dreaming, she stood with her past, her purpose, and the legacy she'd sworn to carry forward. 6 months later, spring breathed life back into the streets of Detroit. The Rachel Jefferson Community Center bloomed with activity. Children ran through the hallways with books in hand. Volunteers painted art with teens on Saturdays. And the counseling room now had a wait list of local families seeking hope, not just help. The building had become more than a shelter or a service. It had become a heartbeat. Mia walked the halls with Callahan, clipboard in hand, checking off repairs and upcoming community events. There was a mural unveiling plan with local artists, and Maya had agreed to speak at a citywide youth empowerment conference next month. Her schedule was full, her energy measured, but purpose kept her steady. "Looks like we're fully booked through summer," Callahan said, scanning the paper. "3 new programs launching. That mentorship idea you had already has 20 signups." Maya smiled. "That's what I wanted. Not just a center, but a movement." He paused, looking at her. "You've become the legacy." She shook her head gently. "I'm just the bridge. The legacy is what people carry out of here into the world." Outside, the garden project had taken off, raised beds growing tomatoes, squash, basil. Mr. Phillips, a retired science teacher from the neighborhood, taught the kids how to compost, prune, and understand that life, like healing, takes time and care. That afternoon, Maya visited Mama D. The older woman was knitting on the porch. A radio playing soul music from the 70s. "Don't you ever sit still?" Mama D teased. Maya kissed her on the cheek. "Only long enough to miss you." They sat together for a while, watching the street lights flicker on as the sky turned lavender. Maya pulled out a worn notebook from her bag. "Started writing a memoir," she said softly. "Not about him, about her." Mama D didn't need to ask who. "I want people to know her name," Maya continued. "Not just the name on a building, but the woman behind it. Her sacrifices, her strength." "You think folks will listen?" Mia looked up at the stars starting to peek through. "They're already listening. They just don't know her voice yet." Mama D nodded. "Make sure you write about the quiet days, too. The ones no one talks about. Those matter most." Back at the center, Maya stayed late, reviewing applications for new staff, answering emails. A soft knock interrupted her focus. It was Evelyn. She wore casual clothes, jeans, a sweater, no assistants, no boardroom armor. "I thought you might be here," she said. Maya leaned back. "You surprised me." "I've been thinking," Evelyn said, walking slowly into the room. "About what I said about you, him, all of it." Maya waited. "You were right," Evelyn said at last. "He didn't leave me out. He just left a piece of himself behind that I didn't want to see. I resented that." Maya nodded, not in judgment, but in understanding. "I came to ask if I could help," Evelyn said quietly. "Behind the scenes. I don't want my name on anything, but I have resources, connections, and maybe it's time I start listening, too." Maya took a breath. "You're welcome here. As long as you come for the right reasons." "I am." They shook hands. Two women, finally stepping out from behind one man's shadow, facing each other as individuals. Weeks later, Maya stood on stage at the city's civic auditorium, accepting a civic leadership award. She spoke not of money, not of bloodlines, but of names that don't appear on company buildings or glossy magazine covers, but live in the hearts of people transformed by courage. She ended her speech with the line her mother always said before bedtime: "Be brave, baby, even when no one's looking." After the applause faded, she returned home to the apartment above the center. She placed the award beside the music box next to a photo of Rachel, arms around a baby Maya, both faces full of light. In the quiet, she whispered, "We made it, Mama." Then she turned off the lights, letting the glow from the mural outside spill into her room through the window. And as the wind carried laughter from below, kids playing late, music still echoing, Maya closed her eyes. Tomorrow would come with new battles. But tonight the story had found its ending. Not in silence but in her name. The story of Maya teaches us that legacy is not measured by wealth or power but by truth, compassion, and the courage to face the past. It reminds us that even in the face of betrayal, injustice, and pain, healing is possible when we choose empathy over bitterness. Maya didn't just uncover her roots. She turned her history into hope for others. Her journey shows that justice isn't always loud, but it endures quietly in the lives we touch and the truth we dare to. Subscribe to the BUP Stories channel for more inspiring tales like this.